Ulises, some new individuals will be joining Cooperstown, going into the Hall of Fame.
That's right. 3 players get voted in, but maybe no Tampa love this time. Let's talk about it right now.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, my name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano.
And we are the host of the Locked On Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your very first listen every day. Be sure to check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Locked On Rays. You can also find us on all the other traditional podcasting platforms, as well as social media, X and Instagram at Locked On Rays. And we love the mailbag questions, lockedonrays@gmail.com. In fact, we have a mailbag episode planned for this Friday. So hope you all can tune into that. Somewhat Rays related, but definitely baseball related. The Hall of Fame, the BBWAA or BWAA, I can never get it right. The ballots were revealed last night on MLB Network, and we have a trio of players going into the Hall: Adrian Beltre, Todd Helton, and Joe Mauer. Adrian Beltre got 95.1% of the vote, Todd Helton 79.7% of the vote, and Joe Mauer 76.1% of the vote. And we will get to this topic as well. Gary Sheffield, Tampa born and bred, fell short of the necessary 75%, garnering just 63.9%. So he'll have to await the contemporary eras committee's decision on him a year or two from now, whenever that exact time frame is. But Ulises, is this about what you expected? A trio of members and those types of names that would get voted in for 2024?
I thought one more guy had a chance, and he was really close. Billy Wagner. He had 284 votes. That's 5 votes short. Joe Mauer gets in with 4 votes plus. So it was close for both of them, for Joe Mauer to get in and Billy Wagner to be left out. Now, Billy only has one more year on the ballot, I believe. Once you're at 73.8,
you better be getting in. You better be getting in that next year. And we've talked about it before. He is certainly deserving. He has the career. He has the track record. He also has the unique qualities of being a lefty closer and being listed at 5'10". He's probably closer to 5'8", 5'9", and being a 100-mile-per-hour flamethrower. I mean, one of very few closers to accumulate 400 plus saves, and just look at his strikeouts per 9 inning. I mean, I think everything tracks. I know he's gotten knocked or dinged for the lack of postseason experience and or not so strong showings in the postseason. But when you say Billy Wagner, I say, he should probably be in Cooperstown.
I think I was thinking about this yesterday. I know this pitcher that I'm going to name is very successful in the playoffs, but he has that underrated quality about him that because he's in a good team, people don't talk about him. And he's been surrounded by stars, so they don't talk about him. But he does his job, and he does his job better than anybody, at least in the playoffs. In the regular season, he's still pretty good. Ryan Pressly seems to me like a Billy Wagner type, just quietly going about his business, collecting all of these stats. And I think by the time all is said and done, Kirk Kimbrell is the shiny object, and maybe Kenley Jansen is another shiny object. Josh Hader. Ryan Pressly might be the Billy Wagner. When he was going, he had Mariano and Trevor Hoffman to compete with, and maybe Billy was always getting the third vote out of those 3 guys. I think Pressly might be that guy.
Yeah. I would say, just looking at his stats right now, the thing that would hurt or seem to hurt Presley is just 108 saves in his career ERA being 3.25, while Billy Wagner had 422 career saves and 2.31 ERA. But I think your point is correct of underrated in that
Right.
era in comparison to other guys. So I would strongly suggest that he gets in next year. Just looking at some of the numbers for him, he is one of only 8 major league relief pitchers to accumulate at least 400 career saves. His 11.9 strikeouts per 9 innings pitched is the second highest of any major league pitcher with at least 800 innings pitched. 7-time All-Star, relief award, finished top 10 in saves in the National League 10 times. He's in the top 10 in games finished. Did that 9 times. I mean, the list goes on with the accolades there for him. Now, kind of to flip this question around or to add a little wrinkle to it. So, and we've done episodes previously of, say we had a ballot, who would we vote for? Who would we give our 8, 9, 10 selections for? Don't want to necessarily go through all that, but I'll just frame it like this. If you could only vote for 3 players for this year's ballot, for the 2024 ballot, would it have been Beltre, Helton, or Mauer, or would it have been some other combination thereof, be it Beltre, Wagner, Sheffield, Beltre, Abreu, Sheffield? How would you have, what direction would you have gone if you were given the golden pin that Mark Topkin and John Romano and others have?
I like the hypothetical question. I would never be one person to just vote for 3, 4, 5 people. I would never be that person because when you look at this ballot, like there's just so much talent.
It's a stacked ballot. I mean, maybe more so stacked than other iterations where, I mean, there's been a year recently where nobody got in by the writers, and then a lot of years where it's just one guy or 2 guys.
Yeah, and there hasn't been a year ever where more than 3 players get voted in. So we were at the cusp this year. I think the guys that got in were fine. If I want to be picky, I would probably just get Abreu in there, probably for Beltre, because I know Beltre's going to get in regardless of my vote. Like, he had 95%. So what does 94.9 really mean if I get to put Abreu on the ballot? So something like that I would have done. But no, I think these 3 guys, I mean, Adrian Beltre was a shoo-in since, you could say since the last day he retired, but you could also say since the names were going to come out last year, like, oh, Adrian Beltre is going to be on the ballot next year. Right. He's going to get in. So, like, it was never a doubt on Beltre. Now, Helton and Mauer, those are very different things because Helton is fighting the Coors Field effect, and then Mauer is fighting did he have a long enough career as a catcher, right, with accolades that give way to his more than maybe mediocre, maybe a little bit above average as a first base DH guy? Because really, as a first base DH guy, like that, he was hurt and right, he was older, and he had already taken a beating as a catcher, so he wasn't a batting champ. He wasn't putting 800 OPS numbers anymore. I think as a first baseman DH, he was like a 770, 780 guy, which is not bad at all, but it's not, it doesn't give you Hall of Fame vibes. So right, that those 2 guys were fighting that, but I'm glad to see them both in, because in my book, both Todd Helton and Joe Mauer deserve to be Hall of Fame guys.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right about those 2 cases where years and years, I mean, it's still whoever plays in a Rockies uniform is going to have to battle that no matter the type of career they put up, the stigma of playing in Coors Field. And to some extent, it tracks. If you look at Todd Helton's home numbers versus away numbers, they are noticeably better at Coors Field, where, I mean, I guess for most players, you're going to do better at home than away, but it is a marked increase from wherever else he played on the road in his career. And Joe Mauer, is that handful or slightly more than a handful of years of greatness as a catcher outweigh? Is that enough? Is that half dozen, whatever that mark of you were amazing, one of the best players in baseball for a contained number of years versus, putting up the counting stats for a dozen years or so. And I think we have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, like catchers in the position and the toll that it takes on each of those respective individuals, just like relievers. We can't just look at Billy Wagner's WAR and say, oh, he's not up to 50, 60 WAR because, he's a reliever. So we have to look at things differently. And there is some fun and research that you have to put into it to make a strong case, strong decision for each of them. We have more to discuss, but first we have to tell you something very important, and that is this. The NFL regular season is wrapping up. Well, it has wrapped up, but there is still time to get in on the action with FanDuel. They are America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is super easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same game parlays, bets in their new Explore tab, and you can also make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is a really cool way to find popular parlays. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more that you can dive into with FanDuel. So go ahead, take advantage. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn, LOCKEDON. I'll repeat it again. FanDuel.com/LockedOn, LOCKEDON to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, Ulises, before Tuesday, would you have put green Skittles on Gary Sheffield getting voted into the Hall by the writers?
No, I would not have put green Skittles. I would have wanted him go in. I think he deserves to be in. I think when I look back at my childhood and name the most feared hitters, it was Gary Sheffield. Like he makes that list. Like he will bump anybody off that list. I mean, you're just the imposing nature of his stance, which is a very particular stance, which that shouldn't get you in the Hall. Just to, he has a particular stance. Let's get him in the Hall. Like, no, that's not what I'm saying. But it is a museum. It tracks, what the story is about the sport. Can you really tell, if you're talking about batting stances, like how are you not going to name Gary Sheffield if you're talking about ball in the last 30 something years? Like,
yeah, it's one of the most iconic and recognizable stances. I think every kid that was a baseball fan during that time frame that also grew up playing baseball, you would mock his stance. You would try to replicate
of course
the bat waggle. It was so recognizable, and it was a part of what made the game unique and fun. Just those guys that are different, that are quirky, that have something that you can remember them by. Yeah,
no. So no green Skittles, because I thought, always, if you guys are tracking it with on Twitter, I forget, Mr. Tibbs, I think is his name.
Yeah, who tracks it. The guy who he's the I can't think of he's like the watchdog of all the Hall of Fame voters.
Yeah, of all the ballots, and tracks it in
publicly listed ballots.
And he does a great job with them. And so if you track that with him, that out of the percentage that the players are going to get, they usually get bumped down a good 3 to 5% from the public announced ballots. So yeah, he was right at the cusp. Like I think he was at 74%. So there's no way he could go up from that. So no green Skittles. But I was surprised that only, let me see. No, actually, no, I was not surprised about that because all of them had him. But I was surprised that, when you look at the ballot and the percentage wise, like I have it here in front of me, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 people that were first and done. And all of them received about 6, 5, 4 votes, 3 votes, even 1 vote. Brandon Phillips received 1 vote.
Yeah.
Jose Reyes and James Shields, 0 votes. How do you feel about that? If you were a Tampa Bay writer and you have plenty of room in your ballot, say you voted for 6 players, say you voted for 4 players, and you covered James Shields, Kevin, and you know what James Shields did for the community, not only with his Big Game Shields charity, but what he did for the team when he needed to be a veteran, and how he basically is known as, I know Scott Kazmir was first before him, but who really stepped up to be like the first leader of the clubhouse, and how this is how we're going to be about it in the rotation. And that still is felt to this day. Would you have given a vote to James Shields?
Probably not, because I just look at it as, does this guy deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? Not I don't want to say sympathy vote, or a vote for all the great things you did in Tampa Bay and elsewhere, and being such a great and stable force for the organization. But you're just not, just personally, you're just not to that caliber. I just wouldn't throw you a bone like that necessarily. To me, it almost kind of works, however you want to think about it. But the people that don't vote for Adrian Beltre, like, I know that the idea is, oh, well, everybody else is going to vote for him, or mostly everybody else is going to vote for him. But what he did in his career over that length of time, he earned your damn vote. Give him a check mark. So I know there's this game of, nobody has gone in the Hall unanimously, not even Derek Jeter, maybe Ichiro's that guy that'll cross that threshold next year. But my point is, Adrian Beltre is 100% a Hall of Famer. He should get 100% of the vote. So I just wouldn't give James Shields a vote in that case, or that instance. And that was the case among the local writers that had votes. Eduardo Encina, he voted for Beltre, Helton, Jones, Mauer, Sheffield, Wagner. Romano voted for Beltre, Beltran, Helton, Mauer, Manny Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez, Gary Sheffield, and Chase Utley. And then Mark Topkin going with the small hall approach, voting for Beltre, Mauer, Sheffield, and Wagner. So he kind of went right down the line of how it all tracked with the rest of the voters as far as the percentages go. But I grew up a huge fan of Brandon Phillips, watching games every night, but he's just not to that point. He's just not a Hall of Famer. Just like, that's why, well, did Carl Crawford hit the ballot already?
I think so, right?
He must have. And I don't even remember or recall if we had like
I think last year he was dropped off. Yeah. Look.
And I would say Carl Crawford had a larger, well, I guess it's all perspective, but more memorable to the Rays organization.
Oh, that's a great poll. That's a great poll. I would love to see the results on that, because going to the Red Sox, I think, did diminish a little bit of the love for Carl in Tampa. Like that, time heals all wounds, but I think that's still there. To the James Shields, is it pandering if you vote for him? Is it the right thing to do as a tip of the cap? I agree with you. I don't think you can just look, being on this is what is such a tricky thing about the Hall of Fame ballot. Being on the ballot is an amazing accomplishment. Not everybody makes it to the ballot. Like, that's number one.
That alone should be something that you frame that ballot. You print it out and put it on a
Hey,
in your office somewhere.
I made it on the Hall of Fame ballot. Like that's such a, like Shields is next to all of these names: Beltre, Helton, Mauer. Like that's an amazing feat of itself. So I do think it's, I saw it on X. People just going like, oh, you needed to. How dare they not vote for James Shields? Like, because I think ultimately I understand the tip of the cap. I understand that's, hey, you did a lot for our community. Here you go. But I feel like you're diminishing what the Hall of Fame ballot is if you're now just like using votes to pander. Because if you're using votes to pander, then you don't deserve to say, oh, I don't vote for that guy because of small hall philosophy, or I don't vote for that guy because, well, he didn't really do enough. Well, so you're using a vote to pander then? So that doesn't track. So I am okay with
like, frankly,
guys.
I would be really upset if Topkin or Romano or Encina had a check mark next to James Shields, but they didn't have one next to Bobby Abreu or Billy Wagner.
Yes.
Like, what are we doing here? At this point, you should take your Hall of Fame voting card and throw it in the trash, because then you're making a mockery of it. Frankly.
You're making a mockery of it. Exactly. So I understand people that wanted James Shields to get a vote just as a tip of the cap, but people being on the ballot is already an amazing tip of the cap. Like it's unless
incredible. You can measure off the field WAR, where he would need like another 30 or 40 of that, because a career look, he had a really
integrity
good,
clause,
solid, impressive career. Hall of Fame worthy? No. Hall of Very Good worthy? Nah. Like no. Yeah. Just being on the ballot alone, I think, is something that you should cherish and be proud of. But I'm not about just throwing votes because you like the guy and he did a lot for the organization that you covered, or he was nice to you in an interview.
Exactly, because then it makes a mockery of it, and it makes it personal, subjective, rather than like a little bit. It's always going to be subjective, but it's a little bit more serious if you don't put those things in the pot. Now, you look at Encina's ballot, Romano's ballot, and Topkin's. Topkin has said he has switched to a small hall philosophy, which is fine. Like everybody can, obviously has their own way. But I don't understand the discrepancy then, because Topper says he has changed to a small hall philosophy. But then why did he vote for Scott Rowland last year? And I know that you can't answer that because you're not Mark Topkin. But
I guess his idea was he legitimately believed that Scott Rowland was a Hall of Famer. I don't recall how many people he voted for last year. Yeah, but I think his idea is small hall. I'm only going to vote for 2, 3, 4 players. I'm not going to vote for 8 or 9. Like you see,
right? But in that ballot, I again don't have what he voted for in 2023, but it just seems like even Scott Rowland aficionados and people that were pushing for Scott to get into the Hall of Fame, if you poll all those people, I don't think they would be considered small hall voters. Like I think they would be more likely to be big or medium hall people. So like that just didn't track when he was writing that to me. I like, if you're a small hall guy, Scott Rowland doesn't really track to be a small hall guy. Like small hall is like,
it's like Adrian Beltre, and that's all you're voting for that year. Exactly. That's like really, really small hall. I guess it depends on your definition of small hall. And talk about some sleuthing or great Googling that I did in the last minute. I did find his ballot from 2023. He check marked or X'd Scott Rowland, Gary Sheffield, and Billy Wagner. Those were his 3.
See, that just seems odd to me. Yeah. But okay. But that just rang a little bit. Small hall and Scott Rowland makes your list? Really?
Right. Yeah, it's all perspective, I guess, at the end of the day. And his ballot, going back to the point about James Shields, like it would look really wonky if he threw an X next
Yeah.
to Bronson Arroyo because he, went to Hernando High School. Like, we just at some point have to look at it realistically and
was Carl Crawford on that list? Can you see it or no?
I did not see him on that list. No,
Maybe,
and I don't recall. I don't recall Topkin voting for him.
I don't either. So, I mean, again, I think it's more pandering. I think I understand where people are coming from, where like it would be nice for them to get a vote, but just being on the ballot again is like, a great honor.
And a guy does that, but he doesn't vote for Fred McGriff, like whoever's the version of James Shields for that respective baseball market. You vote for him, but not a Fred McGriff. Like, at that point, it's just insanity. That's what you save the team Hall of Fame for. And the team ticker tape parade, first pitch of the game on opening day, or there's a time and a place to recognize James Shields, and it's in Tropicana Field or at Charlotte Sports Park, not in Cooperstown, frankly.
Or not even a vote. Yeah, like,
not even a vote.
But yeah, no, we'll see. I am not, like upset about the Encina, Romano, or Topkin ballots. Like, I understand where all of them are coming from. It does seem kind of funky to me that Romano, really, I mean, Manny Ramirez and Alex, like, he doesn't care about
steroid
allegations. He doesn't care. Then, if you don't care about that, how does Andy Pettitte not make your ballot then?
Yeah. I would have to see, did he vote for Andy Pettitte previously or not previously?
No, he hasn't. No.
Oh,
so
okay.
I would like to understand that. But no, I think out of all of the publicly available ballots, these were not the worst.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to see the worst. I'm sure there's some doozies out there. I've not followed it that closely, but when I looked at the local guys, it was like, okay, I
could track
where
it.
They're coming from.
Yeah,
it's not anything that's incredibly egregious or like, what the hell are you doing voting for this guy versus not that guy, whatever it may be.
Yeah, no. Topkin going small hall and saying Beltre, Mauer, Sheffield, Wagner, completely okay with that. And if you don't care about steroids, Romano's ballot is fine. And then Encina just says, I don't want steroid users if it's proven. And I just like kind of a small hall too,
which is fine. Like, I just ask that you be consistent with it. Whatever
that's it. Yes.
Whatever your rule or rules are, that it's you kind of
be like an umpire
in the sand and you don't cross it.
Be like an umpire, like a strike zone. Like, is that going to be a strike the whole 9 innings?
Right.
We understand. So yeah, no, I think it's fine. Now, for people that are watching on YouTube who are hitting that like button and who are hitting the subscribe button, leave it in the comments. Do you think it's pandering to vote for James Shields on the ballot, or do you think it's the right thing to do to tip the cap to a guy who was great for your team? I want to hear if you guys agree with us, disagree with us. Leave it in the comments.
Yeah. And also want to hear if you believe Gary Sheffield should be in the Hall of Fame. I think eventually he will get in by the contemporary era committee, but that doesn't quite have the same light or luster as the writer's version of it. I mean, first of all, you have to wait a little bit longer, but it almost seems like it's still a great accomplishment, but the contemporary era thing almost seems like an afterthought. Like with Fred McGriff, you don't get all the pomp and circumstance with what we had yesterday and this morning. And, there has been a lot of controversy surrounding Gary Sheffield over the years between arrest and legal entanglements and the allegations to performance enhancers. And I know that, he was a very strong personality and probably rubbed not just players, coaches, umpires, but some writers the wrong way. And that probably
pretty sure that's why he has what was it? 63.9% and not 75%. I'm sure.
Yeah.
That someone's sensibilities got the best of them and said, you know what? I remember when he talked back. I remember when he didn't he didn't do an interview for me. Yeah.
But again, like you're going to detract Gary Sheffield, but not elevate a guy like Fred McGriff or others because of that character clause. It's like, it's some wonky business sometimes. But yeah, obviously 22-year career that Sheffield had, 509 homers, scored 1,636 runs, drove in 1,676, 9-time All-Star, finished top 10 in MVP voting 6 times. Very impressive. So I would be upset if, Topkin had voted for James Shields and not Gary Sheffield or something of that ilk. All right. Let's hear what you have to say in the comments. Looking forward to hearing that. In the meantime, hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you on Friday.